welcome everyone to this episode of the Stag. I'm joined by Mike Rudling, Technical Director and Co-founder of Radix Nutrition. If you're watching my Instagram on the weekend, I had a dabble on some of the experience pack. Mike, tell us about the story. How does something like Radix begin?
Yeah, thank you. And it's a real pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for the invite. Yeah, Radix is an interesting one. So in a former life, I was a semi-professional road cyclist. So that was going to be my first career out of school. And I was always fascinated, really driven by the physiology, human performance and nutrition side of it. So spent a lot of time training and racing and traveling overseas, and because nutrition is this hugely powerful tool, but it's complicated and it's always impractical. So Radix, we're a nutrition company, startup, and we're developing a technology that we think will simplify nutrition for a lot of people and help them, utilize or use a higher quality standard of nutrition in their everyday life. And yeah, we've been doing it for 7 years. We started from an idea or a concept, no experience in the food industry, and yeah, went from working in our barn to we upgraded at one point to a garage, which was exciting, and we're at our second factory, and yeah, it's been a huge roller coaster so far, but it keeps getting better and more exciting.
Mate, you've just made me excited. I was talking with a Instagram friend who owns a deer farm down in South Island, rather big station, and she was sending off some deer femurs to her sister-in-law to make bone broth, and I said, man, that's what I want to do at scale, venison bone broth. And
yeah,
it's awesome to hear that you can start out of a barn and upgrade factories to be where you are today. So that's what this podcast is about. Getting stories that prove it can be done. Who were some of your inspirations to keep you on keeping on?
Oh, I don't know. It's it's been a huge journey, and I have a lot of role models. I guess I'm kind of a peculiar sort of set of interests. So I'm fascinated by technology, science, and applying those towards improving or finding improvements in everyday life that can work at scale. So I've always looked up to Apple. I think they're a really fascinating study. When you make a product or a service, or you go through a clean sheet start on something, you have to decide what you're going to do, but you also have to decide what you're not going to do, right? Because clarity and if we're ever so lucky to sort of master what we're doing, focus is a huge deal. So I've always admired their approach to sort of industrial and consumer design, I guess, in industry. And then growing up as an athlete, just a load of just really fortunate to be around some truly world-class and inspiring performers. I was a swimmer for 15 years, or 12 years maybe. I think that taught me a lot about focus. The mindset I think you have to develop as an athlete, one, to be pretty resilient against setback and hardship. And you are always your own biggest critic. But yeah, I don't know. Very eclectic set of interests, I guess, and people I look up to in different areas. So,
I mean, that's got a lot of resonance here, man. I gave up swimming when I was 15, and got the old black line fever. So they say. Yeah. What was your strokes, man? I was a breaststroker, butterflyer, and IMer. So I'd like to do the pain game.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just freestyle or front crawl or crawl, as Americans would say. Yeah, I was best at 1500, but my favorite event was 50 meters. So go figure. 1500 just went on forever and ever, and I used to dread it. Yeah, I was terrible at fly. Breaststroke, my knees used to fall apart, and then backstroke, I could. It was never a good argument to be on your back when I could see much easier on my front. So, no, I just specialised on freestyle, but didn't have much choice at the end. I was terrible at everything else, but
yeah,
it was good fun.
No,
it's a hard sport.
Special breed to go racing for 16 minutes, you know, in a foreign environment.
Yeah. Yeah, swimming's just it was tricky, but then I got into road racing and time trialing, where it was just a whole nother world of pain. You know, you can be on the rivet for an hour straight. But yeah, there's a lot more exciting in that. You know, you're racing a bike at high speed, but yeah, fun times. But bit of physical pain's always good.
Yeah. What was the system like for cycling in the UK? Obviously, you know, you look at Tour de France now and Sky's crushing it, but what was the sort of systems like, you know, even on the track, on the boards? Well, UK guys are doing pretty well there too.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal setup, and I think British cycling. I think you had British rowing a little beforehand, but then British cycling probably turned into the big success out of UK Olympic sport. And I got into it quite late, so I got into cycling when I was 15. I did both of my shoulders in swimming, and I got lent a road bike to go and maintain my fitness. And yeah, I never looked back. It was just phenomenal. And I did it for maybe a year, and then I was lucky enough to get into one of the feeder programs into the very bottom rung of the British Cycling Performance Program. And I mean, I guess the thing is with that, it's a pretty big effort to go out and find talent and to develop it and take it through. And yeah, I was part of hundreds of you know, young cyclists that they took in around the country, and we go around training camps, and they take all of your metrics and see how you're performing. I guess make selections from that and take it forwards. And they were always really focused about track cycling because that's where the medals are and that's where their funding comes from. And coming from swimming and then getting into cycling late, track riding is terrifying. And takes a degree of bike skills that I just didn't have at the time. And also it just seemed really similar to swimming. You know, you could go away for a weekend racing or a week racing, and you're just indoors the whole time, going through that cycle of, you know, you're an hour out from your event, you set up your kit, you warm up, you compete, you warm down. And I'd just done that for years. So I was more interested in the road side of it. And then I got onto a couple of teams there and was really fortunate. But yeah, British cycling are phenomenal. And since I stopped 7 years ago from competing, the profile of cycling globally has just exploded. And I'd always hoped that would happen because it's this fantastic sport. But yeah, how it has developed is just phenomenal, especially in the UK. I mean, a lot of Wiggins and Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas, they're household names now. And when I was cycling, people made fun of what you're wearing. Now they're rock stars. So yeah, I should have hung in there maybe, but I enjoyed it. It was a fun process. Sport's a great school of hard knocks, teaching you what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. And you said, you know, you got an eclectic mix here, fascinated by sports and physiology. How did you sort of go about the formal basis of schooling? Obviously, you said sports is a good school of hard knocks. What about the formal side of things?
Yeah, I was interesting at school. I very selective focus. So like if something interests me, I'll obsess over it. I love it. And then if it doesn't interest me, I've got better things to think about, which, you know, in hindsight, that's not the best mindset going through school. But I was good at was good at some things. I was always a little bit of a daydreamer, I guess. I was very, very dyslexic when I was a kid. Like if they were giving out awards for dyslexia, I would have been front of the queue at school, which was fun. But you know, I'd be anything from understanding the whole year's curriculum in half a term, and therefore being bored for the rest of it, through to failing other classes through a complete lack of interest. So I don't know. It's interesting. The problem, you can't learn fast enough in a school environment, which is what frustrated me. You know, and since learning school leaving school, and yeah, so much information now. If you really want to get into a subject, you can progress so quickly. And I guess in hindsight, to sit down on the first day of the term and there's your textbook, and that is, you know, even just a small part of that is going to be what the next year is about. Just didn't interest me too much, but certain subjects did. I was always fascinated by technology. IT, which would have been terrible when I was at school. I mean, computers had progressed massively. Product design, physical education and the theory around that, and then biology. I was never smart enough with chemistry. But yeah, I guess those things. I wish I'd done better at maths. That's a, you know, that's a weapon of a skill set to have. It's something I've had to do my best to try and develop now since leaving school. But you can catch up. But yeah, my advice to a younger self would be, if you're not interested at school, all the better to just nail it and get the best out of it than it is to think about other stuff. But it was fun. I was lucky to go to a really good school in the UK called Millfield, which is a big sports academy.
Nice.
So I was there as a swimmer, and your whole timetable is shifted around that. So I'd swim, I don't know, 6 to 9 sessions a week, maybe 8. I could have done 9, could have done 10, but realistically it's probably 8. That'd be AM. We were in the pool, I think, at 6 AM or 5:45 through to 7 or 8, and then back in the pool in the afternoon.
Yeah.
5 to 5.5 days a week. But yeah, as I said, I discovered road biking, and I was addicted to that after school. But I don't know. Since leaving school, physics is a really big one. I guess is sort of pure sciences really getting to the forefront of things. Technology, right at the very sort of sharp end of, you know, what's known, what isn't known, what's being developed, and it's something that we've been able to incorporate a lot into work. So that mindset's meant that we're probably one of the best freeze drying companies in the world, although it's like secondary to what we're trying to do as a nutrition company, but it's a core technology for us. And we're obsessive on the quality that we turn out and process control, and where we're at, to a point that one of the supplier of the equipment we get, I asked him at one point, you know, how are we doing, you know, learning wise? Are we terrible, or are we doing okay? And he pointed out how much of a huge pain in the ass I was, because we were just obsessed. What about this? What about that? Why is it like this? Why wouldn't you do it like this? How can we make it bigger, faster, stronger, more accurate? And he said they don't get anyone that interested. So, you know, again, yeah, just an outlet for sort of sheer curiosity. But yeah, science is a big cool. Technology's fun, and then fundamentally doing something that you know, is helpful to society, and useful is a fun place to be.
Yeah, man. And so I was diving into your website today. You guys are using some Schindler stuff, is that right? Is that where all the equipment comes from, or is that just some of your components?
We've got a reasonable amount on site. Our big drying, our drying equipment comes from a company in Europe called GEA, who are, I think they're the largest food processing equipment manufacturer in the world. But we we just wanted to start off with the best technology that we could get in that area. And we were fortunate to be able to do so, but the equipment's changed quite a lot since we purchased it. So, you know, as you begin to customize it and dial it in for what we need, which is a really fun process. But we've got a bunch of kit on site, and it's one thing that we haven't really sort of broken cover on yet, but the idea behind Radix is to fundamentally change how people can access nutrition. So we use freeze drying to get control and stability over the food supply chain and the nutritional design side of things, and it gives us a format that we can make nutrition as simple for a person as technically feasible or possible at this point. So that obviously means that we make amazing food for people outdoors, because, you know, we can take to that community the same nutrition that we work on with Olympic athletes and some of the best nutritionists that we're fortunate to work with. But we're pushing to get into a space where we can deliver customized nutrition either to the professional industries, to elite sports teams and athletes. So there's a lot happening on our technology roadmap in that space that would be quite cool. But we'd like to end up at a point where someone can, you know, implement a fully custom nutritional strategy. It's seamlessly and as simply as possible. So we've got some really fun stuff on the way, but we're a little far out from that at the moment, but it's getting closer and closer.
So you brought up GEA there, and they're big in the milk drying stuff. You know, some guys that are local to you guys, Tetra Pak, are they coming knocking on your door?
Yeah. I think, I've never been around their equipment too much, but it looks absolutely stunning. It'll be interesting to see where we want to go. So, like the one of the core products for us is our factory, and we think that in order to be exceptional at the products that we make, we need to be good at the technology behind manufacturing them. So, we're on a path where we're actually customizing and making our own manufacturing equipment, because you know, also when we're in a situation when you can be very clear around what you're trying to do, you're able to focus your attention purely in the areas that allows us or you to make a better product. So we see, at least for a while, a little like Tesla or a SpaceX, right? If you really want to be pushing the limits, it's kind of our own job to be understanding what sort of technology and manufacturing process would be required to make it. So we do more and more in-house ourselves as we go forwards, which we're super excited about. But and like I guess one of the other ways, like we have a sort of proper startup culture, so we will often run equipment during the day and tear it apart and modify it at night and run it again the next day and see if we can find an improvement. And when you work with external people, things move a lot slower, a lot harder. And you know, by the time we could have met with an account manager once or twice, we're probably 10 steps forwards. So it's a fun process, but yeah, we push pretty hard in that area, which is cool. But Tetra Pak stuff, I mean, that would, if we could get close to that in the future, that would be really incredible.
Nice. And so with the innovation, is it about sort of working in teams, or sort of bottom up, sort of someone who's working on technical equipment bring something to the fore, or you know, no idea's a bad idea type stuff? What's some ethos towards that innovation?
Yeah, we have a really good team and a really good culture. So, like, we're really fortunate to have a situation where our team, they want to improve things. So you just don't stand in the way of that, and we work collaboratively, and you know, the best idea wins, and it doesn't matter who it's come from. If we can get clear around what success would be, And we tend to push pretty hard in our understanding of a subject. So in a product or a process, if we can really get to the bottom of it and understand it from first principles, it's quite clear often how to rebuild something in a way that it can be better. So if you can be specific and measurable around it, you've got a clear goal to chase. And then we work as a team. We have a pretty flat organizational structure, and we try and get everyone's views and opinions on it. But I think it's a mindset and a cultural thing but we've got some really talented and hardworking people. I mean, it's 8:30 at night now, and a number of our team only just left the building because we stumbled into something today on some product design elements that led to a really interesting challenge, and they just hung around to see what they could, whiteboards and pens everywhere and ideas, and tomorrow we'll have a prototype and see if it works. So it's pretty fun.
Absolutely, mate. Product design and innovations, I keep getting themes on this podcast, and that's one that's starting to raise its head for some reason. You guys have won a few awards with that outstanding packaging. I put up the video of me cleaning the bowl. Something as simple as making the inside of that packaging round so you can get the spoon in there. What was that like as a moment? Like, oh, this is simple.
Yeah, like we put so much time into that, and like we've got a few changes coming up on packaging, but it was really hard for us. Like, we want to do a lot in that space, and then it ties into a lot of our ethos around the environment. So we really quickly want to get to a point where the packaging is either biodegradable or recyclable.
Yeah.
Which is really hard because the packaging industry is a long way behind where it should be. And it's seemingly not driven a lot by best intent. It's just driven by sheer market forces. So if a lot of companies aren't pushing in that direction, the films and other technologies aren't really developed. But I thought, first of all, we wanted to make the best product, but second of all, if we could get some recognition for what we've done, we might be able to get a profile that started to enable us to work with companies that would be at the forefront of developing those materials that would help some of our longer term goals. So we were really lucky. We had a really fantastic point of contact at a company that put us forwards for that first award. And we were the first company in New Zealand ever to win that award, which was ridiculous. But that made us eligible for a global entry, and we were the first New Zealand or Australian company ever to win our category in that, I think, which was cool. But yeah, just an obsession of care and attention to detail. How could you make something as small, light, tight, minimalistic, clean, simple, practical, convenient, and then just incessantly iterating it and testing it. And I guess a lot of it's just really thinking hard about it as well, because in a lot of areas you hope to be if you could only make your best product, that's often better than what a lot of your customers would know, because realistically we spend more time than anyone using it and looking at it. But we've actually got quite a lot in that area. I don't know the Expedition, I've got some things, but we used to use this packaging, which is same material. We use a really high barrier aluminium laminate film. But it's a really big bag, and there's a lot of empty space.
Yeah,
there's a lot of airspace, and that creates a lot of secondary issues. So, first of all, it's heavy. We're using more material. It's worse for the environment. It's more expensive. Over packaging something doesn't win anyone any points. We have to pay more. The customer pays more. It's terrible. But this inside our products, we've got an oxygen absorber.
Yeah,
we don't want our ingredients exposed to oxygen as they age, because we'll get a lot of oxidative degradation processes. So we use an O2 absorber. But if you have a larger bag, a bigger internal volume or free space volume, you'll have more residual oxygen in there. You have more of a problem to be solved by that O2 absorber. So we're shifting everything across now to the packaging that you'll be familiar with the Expedition range, which is a lot smaller. I don't know if the camera tricks it, but it's like 30% smaller. But we're then able to get to a point where we don't have much air left in the bag when we pack it. And in our next stages of our development roadmap, in that we think we're working to get rid of that O2 absorber.
Wow.
Just because we've packed it in a way that we don't have an oxygen problem up front in the first place. But yeah, again, it's industrial design, and it was really fun to see what could be great. But it's a pretty cool industry. When we were so small, we couldn't do any prototyping. So you go to the big packaging companies, and they've got an MOQ, and then they've got their normal customer order, which is like multiple 40-foot containers. So there's just no way for a little company to work with them. So I went to the supermarket, which is full of flexible film packaging, right?
Yeah.
And you buy it all, and that gives you different film grades, different materials, different thicknesses, different dimensions, and it's really hard to get the internal volume right. And so you just have to trial and error. So we had these hybrids for a long time, which were all these different bags stuck together with super glue and different adhesives, and it was really fun. And then we went to these global packaging awards, and we're sitting there, and we get called up, and it was just myself and our graphics designer, who's also my partner, fiance Annie, who you were messaging on Instagram when we first put in contact. And we're going up on stage with all of these agencies. The people going up, companies of like 20 people that flown over from Japan or all over the world to pick up this award. And I didn't want to tell anyone that a lot of our prototyping was done with M&M bag packaging out of Waiuku supermarket late at night, as we were just trying to make up for the fact that no one would talk to us on the prototyping stuff. But yeah, again, if you do it yourself, you know what you're doing, you go quick, apparently you can get a good result. But yeah, it's fun. We really want to get packaging for us is just sort of parasitic. We hate what it does for the environment. I think me more than most people, and we just want to minimize that as much as possible. And if we could get it to the point where you could put it in your compost at home in the future, there was no landfill. We're just having a look at some things. I'm not sure if it'll work to potentially replace labeling by laser etching, or using a UV laser to burn into the packaging all of our labeling information, and that way we can do without labeling. But we always want the ability to iterate and change. So you never want to be in a position where we print all of our own labels in house. We do everything ourselves in house, so we can constantly change. We've had a lot of times in the past where we've developed a product in under 24 hours. Someone's asked us for something, we've designed it, and it's gone into production the next day. And that sounds really fast, but we'd like to be able to get that down to the point where someone can put an order in on our website, and some minutes later they can just see it being made, and it's a custom product. So for that, obviously, you need is several orders of magnitude greater efficiency and sort of removing some roadblocks around that. So it's a fun area. There's a lot of cool stuff in that.
Yeah. So how does working with something like Project Across, getting a guy fueled to row around the world or the Southern Ocean, you talk about innovation and challenge and creating and optimizing and efficiency. Like, how much does something like Here's a Hole get as much food as you can in there to get them from Chile or New Zealand to Chile? How much does that play into your creative process?
It's hugely, and I got a funny story. So Oscar and Fedor are a father-son team, and Oscar the son is a project manager, and we got an email come through one day to our info account saying, hey, my name's Oscar, I'm working on this project, and keen for you guys to be involved. But obviously when they spell out, we're looking to row solo from Dunedin to Cape Horn, which is 12,000 kilometers, and 100 and something days, and like it would be a really odd spam email, but
Yeah.
you almost can't believe that it's true. And we Googled Fedor, and sure enough, he's the most accomplished living explorer. And by definition, he's arguably, I think, or technically, the most accomplished explorer in history, because technology has allowed him to be so prolific in all of these areas.
Wow.
And he just blew me away. And he holds the, Richard Branson, the British entrepreneur.
Another
Him
dyslexic too.
and Steve Fossett held. Yeah, hopefully not as bad as me, but he's a seriously impressive guy. And he and a guy called Steve Fossett held the circumnavigation world record in a hot air balloon.
Yeah.
So they actually broke Fedor's record, and then
Right.
he took it back. He broke it again. So I didn't know that, but that's basically him in a pressure vessel, like a space capsule, because they're so high. And I don't know, he's going for the maximum ascent altitude of like 135,000 feet to see if he can get the world record. This is a 68-year-old, very mild, very relaxed, hugely grounded, chilled out guy. And yet, behind that, presentation is just this hard as nails guy, just ex-Russian special forces. He's done everything. He's had everything happen to him. He's done Everest a bunch of times. He's just incredible. So we started working with him, and we took a brief. What are they looking to do? And we thought they were a little bit low on their calorie requirement.
Yeah.
And also a lot of their prior solution to the problem was based on the products that they saw out there and what they'd done before, and a lot of that's based on military ration packs, which really just come from almost supermarket products with different labeling. This is not a nutrition product, so we said that we think we can help there. We can bring a lot to support Fedor's performance on this epically challenging project, but also a lot for safety, because that guy's performance margin is his safety reserve. If what he is required to do each day gets too close to his limit, he doesn't have any resilience against a really bad day. And in the Southern Ocean, as you would know, but we've been lucky to work with some of the Volvo Ocean racing teams, and the Southern Ocean is no joke at all. And when we were working with Team Brunel, we went up to Auckland to look over the boat and meet the guys just as they were preparing for the Southern Ocean leg. And they knew that either themselves or one of the other teams would have a bad accident in the Southern Ocean, because everyone always does. It's so hard, and they're taking a lot of the fittings off the boat and upgrading them with parts that are seriously uprated and tough, and a lot of safety equipment, because it can take half an hour to turn a boat around in a massive storm in a big following sea in the Southern Ocean, and people don't live for half an hour in the Southern Ocean. So the idea of Fedor at 67 doing it completely alone is just phenomenal. And I think he was the most remote human being on the planet, was one of their concerns, because even on the International Space Station, you've got a team. Fedor was in like an 8-meter long boat, all carbon fiber. Like incredibly confined, like a survival capsule. And he was going to be in there. He reckoned he'd be in there, I think, from like 90 to 110, 120 days. And so when we were working through his macronutrient requirements, we actually had a higher estimate for his energy intake. And he thought that he probably wouldn't need that. And we said, look, I think if you can fit it in the boat, you should take as much as you can. And you could always dump it if for whatever reason you had to, but if things got really rough or difficult or there were delays, you would at least have it. And yeah, he was worried about space, so I think we got about 900 meals into his boat, 907 or so meals. And again, they thought it would be much faster. And if you look up his course plot, you might have seen it in our video. He ran into a headwind pretty quick, so he didn't abandon. He kept going, but for a long time he was going backwards. So I think he lost like 30 days having to retread his his route and carry on. But we could have got him a better product. Days. He had RV4. Yeah. Just incredible. And super isolated, really hard. He had snow, he had massive storms, he had hail, he had 10-meter seas, he had I don't know how windy it got, I think like 80, 90 knot winds. He had mechanical issues, so like his boat, when we went down and looked at it in Dunedin, it's so fragile. Like he's got his GPS antenna and he had one spare, and if you roll the boat you'll probably lose the antenna. So if that happens, you've probably got one more, and that happened. He lost it. You've got spare oars, you've got all of these spares, but they're critical spares. You can afford it to break once and then you're on your last one. And I didn't realize this because Fedor doesn't speak English, but we're looking at his hatch door, which our friend Charlie Pitcher from Rannoch Marine, Rannoch Rowing, built the boat, and it's a highly specialized boat. Like it's all ultra light, ultra strong carbon fiber, Kevlar. It was built very tough because the skin on these boats is incredibly thin. And that is the only thing stopping the Southern Ocean coming in. They uprated the electrical systems because they had to run a heated floor, otherwise he'd freeze. And so it was just incredible looking at all of this. But they had this hatch which protected his living equipment, his living area, which is tiny, like really, really small. And it so happened he got into a really big storm, and he lost his autopilot. Which I didn't understand. So autopilot on boats, I don't know if you sail, but for an autopilot to work, you have to have forward motion. Otherwise, the rudder on a boat won't work. So if you've got no forward motion and the boat starts to come off on an angle, it'll put a huge rudder input in, but of course it won't take effect because you're not moving. So I never thought about that, because when are you ever in a boat that doesn't move? But when you're rowing, and if you have to stop rowing and go into the cabin for safety, you're not rowing anymore. So there's no forward motion. So you're not able to make sure that the boat's always following the waves. Jeez. So in some really big storms, he had autopilot issues, and he would roll off the top of waves. So he'd be sitting there braced in this tiny cabin as it barrel rolled off each wave for like 24 hours in a row. Like he'd have breaks, but when a storm's a storm, it's lasting for like 24 hours, 48 hours. And he was in there praying that this hatch stayed on, because if it breaks, he's screwed. So yeah, it was really incredible. One thing that really hit home for us on that, we were the only food source that he would have in that remote environment. So he was counting on us. He was counting on the nutritional support and strategy that we were able to give him. He was counting on our product quality. He can't afford to get sick. So we operate to an extremely high food safety standard, which helps us go to very elite athletes or performers or people like Fedor, who are in this very precarious situation, and say we're the safest thing that you can eat. But that really hit home after the first visit. We took that extremely seriously. But yeah, we took a huge amount of information back from that, and it ultimately led to us completely redeveloping the range into version 5, which is the one that we have now, which is a lot better. But we were able to improve the nutritional design. We raised our carbohydrate proportion because you know, when someone goes into a situation or a position of extreme endurance, the body will naturally shift over to burning more fat, but the process isn't instantaneous, and people typically aren't accustomed for it. So while someone could prepare for it, if they're unprepared and you slam them into a diet that necessitates fat adaptation, they'll go through quite a rough acclimatization process. And we've got a formulation now that is a little bit more resilient against that to help people perform, you know, from day one. We were able to increase the calories. We fixed our rehydration issues. So, you know, freeze-dried foods notorious for maybe not rehydrating well, but that it doesn't have to be the case at all. Freeze-drying can give perfect rehydration performance. You just have to optimize everything for it. And we've changed our product now. So we still say that it's a 10-minute rehydration time, but really it should be a couple of minutes.
Wow.
But you know, that meant a lot for someone like that, because of course he would go a long time not able to boil water because the platform, his boat wasn't steady enough. So yeah, it was a lot. It was really fascinating. We've always sought out the most hardcore people to develop our products with, because you want people that are really going to find the limits and tell you how to better your product to meet that. And I didn't think to bring it, but somewhere we have a meal that's traveled across the Southern Ocean, and
awesome.
It was one that he didn't use, but it's in a cabinet here somewhere. But yeah, he's really hardcore and just hard as nails. The tougher it gets, the more he enjoys it. The quieter and more lonely it gets. He's very religious. He's a Russian Orthodox priest, so he finds being at one with nature and that solitary side very empowering and peaceful. So as it gets harder, Fedor gets stronger, and he's just bulletproof. And yeah, he's super chilled out guy, but yeah, just incredible.
Absolutely.
So we learned a lot.
You're saying about the nutrition demands and optimizing the nutrition. That was something that I really took away from listening to Colin O'Brady talk about his crossing, solo crossing of Antarctica, and then rowing as a group of 4 from Cape Horn to Antarctica is the, I don't know how he works within the States, but that was their big aim, was, like you say, packing as much nutrition and both on the macro level and micro level, you know.
Yeah.
Where does that sort of stem from with you guys getting right into the weeds? Like I asked you the question about the seed oil, and you straight away, you know, full disclosure said that's the carrying for a preservative. You know, you guys are that far into it that, you know, even this one little thing, you know why it's there and what's going on.
We probably fail to communicate like even a tenth of what we put into the products. Like every tiny detail we obsess over. So for me, my background in cycling, true performance comes from outstanding physical health, right? So if you look at the body as a machine, it will give you its best and allow you to do the most with it. The more you care and look after and support its needs. So you know, if we're a big chemistry fuel and the material that the body needs to really be at its best and survive the workload that you want to put into it as an athlete, and help it deliver the adaptations you need to perform. So no, we love all of that, and we design our products to be as nutrient dense as possible. So you have this distinction with food between fuel, which it indeed is. It is fuel, and there's a lot to optimize its role as fuel for the body. But with a longer term view, you know, once you're not measuring your success, you know, right here, right now, when you look to later on that day, the next day, weeks, months, years into the future, you have to really drive on the health of the body. You have to maintain it, and that was my background. So we completely unqualified, but again, the school of hard knocks, and a passion for it. But you know, we work with nutritionists, we work with PhD researchers in areas, we work with role models. We're very fortunate. We have some additions to our technical advisory board coming in the following months, which should see us working with one of the leading strength and conditioning coaches in the Southern Hemisphere and one of the leading nutritionists. I mean, the cool thing about New Zealand, these guys, they're some of the best in the world, and they just happen, we're fortunate enough that they're in this country, but they're really leaders, and that's going to help us move more into this space and help our customers to really start applying some elite, world-class nutrition. And again, Fedor, we were able to give him similar nutrition strategies and product to that which was used at the Rio Olympic Games. So you had the most remote human being on earth eating and following a similar nutrition strategy to the highest performing athletes on earth at the Olympics. And that, I don't think there's any other way that you can do that. And it's in that area that we try and we hope to do more when we sort of better explain, when the time comes right to explain who we are and what we're really working on. That's why we're not here making camping and hiking food. We're making food for people that really are out to perform in a way that they can use it anywhere on the planet. So yeah, we're right in the weeds and we obsess over it. And rightly so. It's a cool subject, but you know, the analogy that we have there, it's like an iPhone, right? Like it's this incredibly sophisticated product, but it exists to serve the user by being as simple to use as possible and help them get a better use. So all of the geekery and technology and science, we need it to be there, but we don't want that to get in the way of our customers being able to use it in pursuit of what their goal is. So no, we're right in the weeds. Like, you should come to a factory tour. I can talk for hours about it, and I can show you the lens that we go to. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you guys, you know, your website,
cool.
Your website hints at it. You know, there's the applied nutrition stuff, the FODMAP, which is really useful for a lot of people as a tool if they've got IBS, you know, out of Monash, and then you got the autoimmune protocol, and I saw there coming soon with ketogenics as well. Like, you know, it must be exciting times to oh, look at that. What's this?
Yeah, this is our keto range. So this will be released next week, but this was extremely hard to make, which is in order. We went through a big project the last 2.5 months, complete clean sheet redesign on how we make a meal, how we structure it technically in all of its functional elements, and that has enabled us to make a product with an extremely low carbohydrate level. So the first version that we're coming out with, we have this balance between nutrient density and health promotion, and actually being a great product for someone to eat, but also wanting it to be as low in carbohydrates as possible. So we're down to 11 grams net carbs in a 600 calorie meal, which gives us about 10.1% carbohydrate. We, in the next steps of the roadmap that we're looking at, maybe later in the year, we'll be able to see that come down a little bit lower. But we don't want to rush it, and we can't get access to some of those ingredients yet. But we're really keen to do that, and it's been extremely hard to do. So like, it's been so hard to do that we'll never be able to explain to anyone outside of the company the lengths at which we've gone to understand the product. But again, it's the process. We need to focus on the company, the technologies, methodologies that help us make our product, but making the machine better helps us make the product better. But I used to follow the keto diet a lot when I was a cyclist. Throughout the different stages of the season, and periodization and carb cycling and the rest of it. And it's been a tough nut to crack, but I think we've done pretty well. But yeah, some cool stuff on the way.
Mate, it got me bloody excited. I'm pretty keen on it as well. But what I couldn't believe about that expedition range is, like, I sort of ate that first meal thinking, oh, that wasn't that, like you said, it's nutrient dense. That wasn't that big. I wonder how I'm going to get on. And I had the breakfast the next day at about 11 a.m. And then I sort of had my third meal basically for the hell of it. And it was like, yeah, you've eaten, 1,700 calories. No wonder you're not hungry.
Yeah, it's been really fascinating. So like, yeah, it's a lot of food, and we actually, so you need a lot of energy, but when someone's active, you need to really be careful about the food volume they're eating, because this is something that's going to get in the way of them having to perform. So, like, we hide a lot in there, because the goal is to make it as easy for someone to eat as possible, as easy for them to carry. If you were looking into a setting like Fedor, or maybe the military, or someone that has to perform, you can't spend a long time eating. And when you're done eating in that setting is really for performance. You have to get back up and perform. So, we have a design parameter in there about the overall volume of food that we want our product to be. And that was one of the big takeaways from Fedor. The guy was in this tiny boat. You can't prolong the time required to eat, because it's super impractical. Like, he's only got two hands and he might need both of them to hang on to the boat. But if both of them are used in eating, now it becomes a luxury. So the easier it is to eat, the easier it is to digest, the less it does to impede activity immediately afterwards. So we've made the design goals for the Expedition Ranger. Nutrient density goes without saying, although the Expedition range, we sacrifice a little bit of that in pursuit of energy density. Ease of digestion. So one of these meals is about 3 servings of vegetables, or about 240 grams of vegetables, and that's vegetables, herbs, spices, nuts. That's the whole sort of matrix that we have in that area. We wind that back a little bit so that you don't have too much food, because with that comes a lot of fiber, and these things can be quite hard to digest. Yeah, energy density is a really big one. And I forget, we measure that in calories per gram and calories per centimeter cubed of product. And then a really big one is how much water. So there are other brands in the world for products for that area that will have more calories, but in order to get to 1,000 calories, the nutritional design really falls apart. They start having a lot of really refined oils and fats, and we haven't had a need to go that far with this product yet. But they all require like 400 milliliters or 450 ml of water. That's more fuel, that's more water that you've got to purify. It's longer cooking times. We had a lot of discussions with some sort of operators in the outdoor space that if they have water, and water's a limited resource, they would rather keep that as drinking water and have less of it required in food. And that both enables a person to eat faster, have it sit lighter in their stomach. And water is like the most valuable asset. You can turn that into any number of different things and you can eat it. But when we put a metric on our product of milliliters per calorie accessed, we're like 2 times better than any other brand on the planet for that. And that all of that put together feeds back into a product that should be like really simple, really easy to digest, and as you say, it enables you to just get on with what you're doing. But yeah, there's a ton behind it, and it's fun. Like when you start pulling the threads apart on what would make a great product, as I say, the sea gets deeper as you go in, right? Eventually, there's everything in there.
Yeah, this podcast always seems to go to taking a shit all of a sudden, and that's the sort of joke that's traditionally been with dehydrated meals, that, well, you're not going to be going to the bathroom for 3 days. You know, that rehydration, and I don't know how much the gluten content and the seed oil content of these traditional meals has to do with it, but you know, how much just the, you know, what do you say, 154 days of on dehydrated meals, like, mate, that's a test.
Yeah, and I didn't. I forgot to mention, when Fedor got out of the boat, he was in awesome shape. He had no health issues. He had no dietary complaints. He'd been training. He was in really good shape, and I think you see in that video that we were fortunate to be able to make, he got out of the boat genuinely in fantastic shape. He could have kept going if he'd have had to. And you know, nutrition isn't the only thing. You've obviously got your mental constitution and strength, but if the machinery breaks down, there's only so much that the mind can do to hold it together. So nutrition is a huge supporting pillar. But you know, with products that give people gastrointestinal issues like that, that's not what nutrition should do. So like we're right at the other end of the spectrum for that. But yeah, you can see it from the ingredient list. I don't know. I mean, we smoke all of the FISAM's claims. We barely even use them for like excellent source of fiber and great source of protein, because we just tend to exceed all of that. But you know, we even put thought into that. What's the ideal? Because you don't want too much. What types of fiber? What types of starch do we want in there? But I'm amazed. I haven't used a lot of traditional freeze-dried or, you know, different technology, but dehy food. But world-class nutrition doesn't give you those symptoms. It's a tool that you should be able to use to get more out of your body. But yeah, we're a little bit different.
No, it's awesome, mate. And you brought up the safety element. I know Luke Taylor, who has been to you guys to have a look through, you know, local Hamilton guy, took it over to Bintang, and you know, as he said on this podcast, he came off his bike and he was super stoked that, one, he had, like, say, high quality nutrition, and two, in the safe form. You know, Bintang's a minefield when it comes to trying to eat food, and he just had it all there, you know, ready to go. And on your website, watching was it Ryan Sisson and Sam Osborne, you know, doing that pioneer race, you know, as you said, it was quick and it was accessible. That Ryan's sitting in the tent just wolfing it down, and all of a sudden he's on board with a bunch of high quality energy.
Job done.
Yeah,
and it's a really interesting one. We have this effect with people. There's a few things. So like when you're away traveling to perform, so not traveling for fun, but traveling with an express purpose in mind, like an athlete, like someone in the military, like a Fedor. You're there to do a job. So food safety, anything, food poisoning, anything that's going to get in the way of anything that could make you sick, but anything that's going to damage your performance, you don't want to risk it. And so we do a lot of work with athletes, because for the sake of, you know, 20 meals, which will fit into a small bag, they can go away for a week or two and have a complete fallback plan. If they don't trust any of the food that they encounter overseas, they have packed the same nutritional strategy that they're able to grow accustomed to and use preferentially at home. You can now travel with anywhere in the world. And a huge part of athletes' travel to these countries is routine. So you'll dial in your optimum, what's best, what you perform best on. That's not something that you ever want to really change, but of course when you travel internationally you have to. Then you've got the convenience side of it, like cycling for me. Road races or time trials were the worst. I have no idea why they start so early in the morning, but you might have a start time of like 6 a.m. And you might want to eat 3 hours before that. So now you're up at 3 a.m. to have a meal. Nothing's open at 3 a.m. But if you don't get a great result, also no one cares about your excuses when you come home. So the ability to have a routine that you can just roll into and execute is a huge deal. And you know, we do a lot with athletes on that, and it's something that more experienced athletes really come to appreciate, especially in the professional setting, because that's where their funding comes from, that's where their prize money comes from, that's where their career is going to come from. And as you say, when you travel a lot, it's a real big issue. But another one that we have, like, we're doing better on our flavors, and we want them to be exceptional, and we're really improving on that very, very quickly now. We sped up development a lot in the last few months. I think last year we went through like 24 product iterations, and in the last 3 months we've been through over 30. So we're going a lot faster now. But flavor's a big one. But the feedback we always get from people is that while we may not have been the food that they were most looking forward to compared to restaurants, people always feel the best after our food compared to anything else. Like, they just feel really settled and in a good place. And that takes a little while for people to catch on to. But yeah, you know, if you're able to put your own performance above junk food and the sort of immediate short-term gain in pleasure for the long-term performance trade-off, it's a big one. But we've worked with some really cool athletes, and we don't get to talk about them because they're customers, and then it's confidential. But we occasionally see images of our products turn up in the background of some cool sports teams, but we don't really get to talk too much about that when it happens, and which is a shame, because we've got some really cool customers. Yeah.
And that's awesome. Mate, how much is it by design or by accident that you guys are part of the Waikato Innovation Centre? Like, is having that word in your location, you know, part of driving the company forward, or is that just a good spot to be?
We were, for a long time, we wanted to be in Auckland, because we thought that would be a sort of busy hub. And we looked at a lot of buildings in Auckland, and then it was pointed out, well, we could start to see it, but because I'm not from New Zealand, I'm from the UK, so I've been here for 7 years, and I have a lot to learn about this country. But my grandparents grew up, my grandparents lived here, so as a kid, I used to visit a lot, and yeah, I love the country, but I didn't know how excellent this area would be. And someone pointed it out to us and said, you know, we talked me through all of the benefits, and they've all been true. It's a really exceptional area for us to access talent, technology, services, and the other things that we need to make progress as fast as we want to. So it's been a really cool area. I mean, I live in Cambridge, and work in Hamilton, and it's just been a really fantastic part of the country. But it's a huge deal. So a little bit by accident and a little bit by design. As I said, I'm a slow learner. I figured it out eventually.
And as a hub, is it, you know, is there much collaboration, or not necessarily direct collaboration, but in terms of thinking collaboration, is there much of that going on there?
Yeah, I'd say that there is. I mean, we have to proactively go out and find it, and to be a part of that community, and we're doing better at accessing that. What we have coming forwards now will help us access that faster and faster as we become sort of closer to the parts of the community that are going to help us become an outstanding international nutrition company. But yeah, it's the opportunities are there to be had. There's some extremely talented people here, but as it is, right? Opportunities are what you make of it, or are what you make of them. But
yeah, and on that, anybody listening that's desiring to work with a company, you guys are looking for a few positions. I immediately thought of my brother when you're looking for a process engineer. He works with Sinlay and he's worked with Tetra Pak. I was like, oh mate, here's something new and innovative that you might like to get into. But on the other side of it,
yeah.
in your website's great, and the content you got on there is great. But what do you think about having someone creative and telling the story and portraying the story? How important is that for you guys? Like you said, to be world renowned as a applied nutrition company.
It's key for us, and especially if you have a story to tell, we need to tell it. So we have a much bigger emphasis coming up on our content marketing, so that we can really communicate who we are, what we do, who we work with, and how we make it. And as I said, we kind of underpresent. We've tried to keep a low profile in what we're doing because the opportunity that we have before us in applied nutrition, personalized nutrition, like how that's going to play out in the future, that will be one of the most valuable emerging areas of healthcare, as there's a greater shift into preventative medicine, which won't be medicine. It will be health and wellness. So we wanted to stay a little bit quiet about that, but now we're sort of cranking into it. But telling a story is key, and it's taken us a long time to see how we can do that, and then to really come and appreciate that you've just got to give it a go. You've just got to start and begin and let the journey shape progress. But we have a lot to say, and whenever someone comes to visit and we show people right the way around, we blow them away, and we definitely don't communicate that well enough to everyone else. There's elements of what that we do that we wouldn't talk about in terms of intellectual property and how we do it, but we're pretty open. I've always taken the view that like really fast progress forwards is the best defense that you can have about being beaten in the marketplace. And so, like, if we commit to being unmatched in that area in terms of rate of progress, it doesn't matter too much about what we communicate and show that we're doing now, because we won't be beaten on it in many areas. So we're trying to be a lot more open. But people are more than welcome to come and have a look. Okay. But yeah, telling a story is a big deal.
I almost take a parallel to that with this podcast. I've been, often people will say to me, "Oh, you're prolific at getting podcasts out," but I sort of record one and put it out because it forces me to get out and get another one. Is that almost the same when you release a little bit of IP? You've got to force yourself to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And it was great. I mean, you just asked if I'd do a podcast, and yeah, of course, it'd be fantastic. It's an absolute pleasure. And here we are a few days later, and it's been so easy and simple. And I think it's always something I try and do to try and catch myself. There's the things creep in that just stop you from just getting on and progressing, and it's just a constant fight to see are there any areas that you're blocking your own progress, and just get on with it. And I think you're a great example of that. I mean, if you don't ask, you don't know, and there's a load of opportunities out there, but we've got some pretty ambitious goals, and we'd love to share those and to help people understand where we're going and how we can help them going forwards. And I mean, it's an obsession for us. And as I said to you earlier on, we've got a really fantastic team, but committing to some big, hairy goals and then just making them work. I mean, it was only a few years ago that we were standing in a field that we just purchased in Hamilton. And I'd go home at night, sit in front of some clean sheet A3 bits of paper, and you got to figure out how you're going to design a factory, and no one's going to come and help, and it's really, really hard. And if you get it wrong and it's a huge fuck up, no one's stopping you from doing that either. That's on you. So like that was a really interesting one. Like when there aren't many areas that we're unique, but we are often, well, we are for sure a unique combination of sort of exceptional parts. So you can find resources to help you understand how each one of those parts may perform, but stitching them together into our product, that's something that we have to make. That was just a case of deciding that, like, we're going to do that, and we're not going to leave until we've done it, and then just staying the course. But it's not something that, I mean, we've got a 3,200 square meter building. We've got 1,000 square meters of clean rooms that we operate to. It's HEPA filtered air, it's dehumidified. We HEPA to an H14 class HEPA filter, positive pressure to 40 pascals, temperature, humidity controlled. It's a really exceptional environment. We had to figure all of that out from scratch. Design all of the food safety systems, processing, quality systems, and you just go for it and commit, and then set all of those up in a way that would enable you to keep fiddling and iterating and changing out parts. So it's that just relentless drive to spend all day working on something, and if at the end of the day you see a better opportunity tomorrow to throw away your work and begin again and achieve something better, you just do it. And we have a real polarizing. Some people hate that, and some people love it. And as I said to you, we spent probably 6 weeks just completely clean sheet redesigning our product. That's resulted in us tearing apart a lot of our manufacturing processes and then rebuilding it a different way. But when you look at progress, and you look at these when you look at the path that product development and iteration and progress takes, and you get these sort of decreasing, you always reach a point where to get to the next level, you have to start again. And I think a lot of people just aren't bothered to do that, and for us it's just an obsession. So that was a really big understanding, and I took that from again, industrial design, and I guess some of my the inspiring people that I've looked up to in that area through reading. I used to be I don't have the time anymore, and it sucks, but I used to be like an absolute prolific reader. Like, I could do an audiobook a day, and I could easily do 5 a week for sure. But I used to study them. So I use audiobooks because you can loop them and you can go over them time and time again to really take it on board. But when I left school, and I started failing school, which led to me leaving school, right? So when I realized that you could really self-educate, that was what really interested me. And then you begin to see the path that you want to follow, and the one put in front of you by school suddenly becomes less interesting. So for me, a big one was learning how to learn, which I think a lot of people aren't taught. But that really led to a real passion for how to improve, how to get better. And I don't think enough people have that. But as I said, like, we could spend all week working on something, and if on Monday we've had a better idea, we'll just bin the whole lot and start again. And that's a really fun culture to be a part of. But it's how high performance sports teams are. I mean, if you want to be better than anyone else, you have to do that. And yeah, I was asked by someone, like, how hard do you work? And like, you work as hard as you can. So if you find a way of working harder or getting a better result, you do that. But it's not something that you consciously hold back on. Like, this as hard as you can, this as fast as you can. But it's fun. New Zealand is just an incredibly innovative country as well. And I think it's in your guys' history, right? I mean, you've just had to overcome a lot of hardship and challenges faced just by sheer geographical location. And there's a reason why I think in so many industries, and particularly in sports, New Zealand is the best in the world. Like, it's the center. As I understand it, it's one of the centers, if not the center, for the high performance yacht racing industry. The America's Cup boats are built here. Some of the highest performance composite material engineering companies are here. I mean, it's a cool country. There's cool stuff happening here, and as I get older and my interests start to broaden, I guess, a little bit more, it's something I do wish that the country would perhaps celebrate and support a little bit more, because it really makes it unique, and I think you guys could compete even better on a world stage on that. But Silicon Valley is very famous, but SpaceX is very famous, but you guys have got rocket labs here. There's some incredible stuff happening in this country. But
that was one of the questions I was going to say to you. Like, that probably comes a lot from our sort of tall poppy syndrome, and what do you think it takes for you guys to stick your head out and, like you say, apply for those awards? Maybe it is the case that the reason why no New Zealanders have won their award is because no one was willing to put their neck out and apply for the award. But really, it creates opportunity, creates recognition, and then you become the guys.
Yeah, I mean, so this tall poppy syndrome thing is quite foreign to me, because I didn't grow up here, and it's one thing I find I can't align with is when you look at humanity and how it's divided up, countries are segregated and we all compete, but actually we're all one and the same, right? We're here together working towards some of these big goals. And I've always been happy or proud for other people to succeed and to help. And I mean, it's a big world. There's a lot of opportunity. I think envying other people, or it's really hard. I mean, we're tiny, and what we're doing we think is really exciting. But there's some people out there doing just insanely complicated things, and it's always been my mindset or ethos that those guys just need all the support that you can give and share. And it's really disappointing me when other people would want to hold them back. But as I said, the tall poppy syndrome is not something that I grew up around, and it's still a culture that I'm learning. But I mean, the packaging awards, I'd never even we were struggling in that area, and we saw it, and we got put forwards by just an incredibly nice lady who worked with us to help enable some of our ideas around packaging. And a big part of us going for the initial award was to help pay back some of what we were so grateful for in her assistance. And that was really fantastic. And she's a huge fan of ours, and us of hers. So yeah, I don't know. We're all one big team. But,
Love it. Yeah. Like you said about like New Zealand as a country as being innovative, and also there's big parallels to the guys you work with that are into adventure racing, and of course Fedor and being a modern day explorer. Like, it's kind of what you guys are about, isn't it? You're exploring, you're navigating, you're pioneering in an industry, and creating your own. You like you say, inspired by Apple, you're creating your own niche. It's massive, and I reckon it's what resonates so highly with outdoors people.
Yeah, and I think having a goal striving towards something is, I think, one of the better reflections, I think, on one of humanity's better characteristics, and I think it's what makes us exceptional. And again, this is a human, an element of our fabric, right? And I think it's one of the best. And we're tiny, but I think we can play a role in making the world a slightly better place and helping people out. But that for me has always been a big part of what this is about. It's not fun living within the confines of sort of normality. You might as well have a big crack at it and give it a go. And as you point out, that takes many different shapes and forms, from the lifelong goals down to a challenge at the weekend, or a personal best. But I've always had that mindset, and I grew up around it. That something can always be better, and I've always loved that. And I can't get on the same wavelength as people that don't share that. It's just not in my DNA. But you can always be better at something, and it's just a never-ending and fascinating pursuit.
Well, good, man. So I'd highly encourage people to get into your website. I spent like 3/4 of an hour this afternoon delving through your videos and reading the blogs and stuff. Like, there's some awesome stuff on there. And then of course the products there. I won't be anything else up on the hill now. That was really a game changer for me. Where else can people find Radix and the brand and learn more about it?
Yeah, so thank you for the comments on the website. We're working hard on that, and indeed we've got a revamped website launching in the next couple of months. And our products are online, and now we're just going out into retail networks in New Zealand and Australia. So that's something that we're pushing really hard on. So we'd like for people to be able to find this in their favourite store.
Yeah, I saw the guys at Hamill's Topo are going to be stocking you guys, which is bloody exciting.
Yeah, I think we can do a lot in that space, and we're really excited. And again, we've moved into that area, and we've met some really great and passionate people, and that's really what it's all about. So we want to be the best retail partner for those stores that we possibly can be, and work closely with them to better understand what we can do to help them and to help our customers. So we've already had quite a lot of product feedback on new products, new iterations that we can come out with. We're pushing really hard on plant-based products. So yeah, it's really fun, and anyone's welcome to drop by and have a look around. And we'd love to meet you.
Wicked, mate. So what I get people to leave us with is the question sort of framed like, what is something that doesn't do you any wrong? Whenever things are sort of flowing or going well, what shows up in your life? It can be a sort of a mantra or a quote, or just a mindset that keeps you going and keeps you moving in the right direction.
For you're asking?
Yeah, for you.
Yeah, that's kind of a I always think about the people that we can help with our products. I think about the guys on our team. I think this is something the world needs, and I'm pretty driven by that. But I don't know, like, giving up is not in my DNA, and I think a big one is we think we can really leave a mark on the world in this part of industry, put a better product forwards, and that's what I'm here to do. And it's a hell of a journey. I'm not sure if I can sum it up in one thing, but I think on a personal level, it's good for people to You know, I think a big part of it comes back to just work as hard as you can. And I think another one is just to be as kind as you can, and to help as many people as you can, because, you know, I don't think there's enough of that. But yeah, I guess from that as well, jealousy and the other things shouldn't really come into it, right? But yeah, dream big.
Beautiful, mate. Mike, thank you so much for your time this evening, and this has been an awesome chat. And you know, we're talking about a product, but we've talked about, you know, possibilities and journey and grit, and it's been bloody awesome. And I'm sure my audience are going to love it, and hopefully a few more people can have a optimized weekend, whatever it is that they're doing out there, their pursuit, because what you guys have made as a product is bloody outstanding. And thanks so much.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ryan, and please do come and visit us. We'd really like to show you around.
I'd love to. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.